Okay guys, so what we're going to be making right now is chicken noodle soup. What we're going to need are 2 cartons of chicken broth, 1 carton of vegetable broth. I went ahead and purchased organic. Then you're going to need wide egg noodles, a bag of pre-cooked chicken fajitas, a bag of carrots, some celery, and dried oregano and basil. Okay, so I'm gonna and an onion. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cut these up. Okay, it's already been pre-washed. The smaller the pieces, the quicker it'll soften, because we don't want it super crunchy. And we're going to cook these for a little bit in butter. You don't want to get too far into the white part, because then that's when it's pretty tough. So we're going to get rid of those pieces. I'm cutting the celery first so I can cook that one first, since celery is going to take a little bit longer to cook and soften. Okay. So I already have my tablespoon of butter. Okay. Remember, it has the little lines for you to measure and know what's a tablespoon. So it says it on the wrapper of the butter. Make sure you purchase butter and not margarine. Okay. I've already had this preheating. Okay. You do not want the butter to start smoking, because then it goes rancid and it turns black in color, and you don't want that to happen. Okay. So I'm swirling it around to melt it evenly around the bottom of the pot. Okay. And so it's almost completely melted, not quite yet. So I'm gonna put it back on here. I have it on medium heat right now. I'm gonna go ahead and put the celery in first. Go ahead and turn on the light. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and chop the onion. You only need half of an onion, but because this is a really small onion, I'm going to go ahead and use the whole thing. Okay. If you remember our pico de gallo lab, I had told you to chop one end so it can lay on a flat surface, and it would be safer to cut it that way, since it won't be rolling around. Okay. And if you make the cuts first, it's easier to peel the onion. Okay. So you're just going to be dicing this onion. Okay. I like to try to use the whole thing so we don't have too much waste. can chop it fine or big pieces, but I personally don't like giant chunks of onion in my soup, so I'm trying to get it as small as possible. Okay. Remember, when you're cutting, you want to hold onto the blade. That's the best way to do it. Okay, these are good sized pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in there. Remember to turn the blade side up so you don't scrape it against the cutting board, because we don't want to dull the knife. I'm gonna raise the heat just a little bit more, just so it can cook a little faster. It should change a little bit in color to like a translucent yellowish color. When you use cooking utensils, if you have Teflon, you need to make sure you're using plastic, because if you're using metal, you're gonna scrape the bottom and it messes up your pots and pans that way. The only time you should use metal is going to be if you're using something like cast iron. Okay, so metal on metal is fine. But if it has a coating on the inside of your pots or pans, you want to make sure to use plastic or wood. Okay, either one will work. But if you're using plastic, do not ever leave the plastic utensil in a hot pan or pot, because it will melt. Okay. And I'll let that cook a little bit more. So I'm going to start opening these up just to get a little prepared. So the recipe calls for 1.5 cartons of the 32 ounces. I'm going to go ahead and use the whole thing just to make a little bit extra. And then I'm going to use a whole vegetable broth also, even though the recipe calls for half of a 32 ounce carton. I'll have leftovers for a few days, and that's okay. If you have a bigger family, this will work out perfectly for your family. Okay. The recipe also calls for half of a bag, but we're going to go ahead and make the full bag because we have it. And the egg noodles, it also says to use half a bag, but again, I'm just going to use the whole thing. And this also is supposed to only be half of a bag, and again, I'm probably going to use the whole thing of this. Okay, so we're making a little bit extra, and again, if you make this at home, it'll be perfect for your family. Okay. You do not have to purchase organic, but you know how we learned about the benefits of purchasing organic foods. We know that it is not genetically modified, and it was done more ethically, so that's what we're kind of going for right now. Okay, that's been cooking for quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and pour in the broths. Then I'm going to add the chicken, the noodles, the carrots, and the seasonings. Okay, and we're going to let it boil for about 20 minutes. Here's the vegetable broth. And you can find this chicken in the freezer aisle of Walmart or H-E-B. I'm going to go ahead and use half a bag actually, since it's getting a little bit full. So I'm going to push it down a little bit, kind of stir it around. Make sure when you do this, you're using a big enough pot. Okay, and then you're gonna put half of a teaspoon of both dried oregano. And because I used a little bit extra, I'm gonna put about another quarter of a teaspoon. Okay. And again, I purchased organic for these because we know that organic is a better option. Okay. Stir it around just a little bit. And I'm going to put a little bit of salt. Not too much because there's already sodium in the chicken broth and vegetable broth. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of pepper as well. Okay. Really, you can add however much you want. It's based on your taste preference. Okay. So we're going to cover it and let it simmer for a bit. Don't put it on high because it may boil over. Make sure that you're paying attention to it and set a timer because you don't want it to get soggy noodles. Okay. Let me know how it turns out, and I hope you all get to do this at home. Thanks, guys.